Welcome back to the Deep Dive. Today, we are opening a file that I think a lot of people respect, but very, very few people actually understand. We're looking at a figure who represents maybe the biggest paradox in modern sports.
Yeah, that's a good way to put it.
A guy who is, widely considered the greatest power forward of all time. There's not much of a debate, really.
No, not really.
And yet, he was labeled boring for basically 2 decades straight.
The big fundamental, it's a massive paradox, isn't it? You look at the resume and it's screaming at you.
Oh, it's staggering.
5 NBA championships, 2 MVPs, 3 finals MVPs, 15-time All-Star. But the man himself, he barely spoke above a whisper.
Exactly. We are talking about Tim Duncan. And look, I want to be honest up front here.
Yeah.
I grew up watching the NBA in the early 2000s.
Right, highlight era.
The absolute highlight era. I was watching Vince Carter literally jumping over 7-footers.
Yeah.
I was watching Allen Iverson cross people up and step over Tyronn Lue. And then there was Duncan, quietly banking a shot off the glass and just jogging back on defense.
Yeah.
It didn't look like the other stuff. It didn't feel electric in the same way.
It didn't. And that is exactly why we need to do this deep dive, because if you just stop at boring, you miss the genius.
You miss the whole story.
You miss the actual mechanics of how he dismantled the entire NBA.
So the mission for us today is to peel back that label. We're going to look at biographical records, the stats, the historical accounts, to really get how a swimmer from the Virgin Islands used psychology and stoicism to break the will of the most athletic people on the planet.
You said swimmer right there, and I think that's the perfect place to start. It's the perfect entry point.
That's everything.
Because Tim Duncan's origin story, it doesn't make sense. He wasn't supposed to be an NBA player. Most of the guys we talk about, LeBron, Kobe, MJ, they were anointed as the next big thing when they were, 12?
Yeah, they were on magazine covers in junior high.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Duncan, he didn't even own a basketball until he was a teenager. It's wild. He was born and raised in St. Croix in the U.S. Virgin Islands. And his obsession, his dream, it wasn't the NBA, it was the Olympics.
Not a basketball.
Not at all. In the water. He wanted to be a swimmer. He was training to be an elite world-class swimmer.
And he wasn't just messing around at the local pool, right? This was serious.
Oh, no. He was legitimately elite for his age group. We're talking a teenage standout in the 50, the 100, and the 400-meter freestyle. He was a machine.
Oh.
And his sister, Trisha, she actually swam in the 1988 Olympics, so the family pedigree was there.
Okay, so this is a real, tangible dream.
A very real dream. And if you think about the psychology of swimming versus basketball, it's crucial context. Swimming is solitary.
Right. It's you against the clock.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It's you against the black line on the bottom of the pool for hours and hours. It requires this intense internal discipline that team sports often don't demand from kids that young.
So you have this kid, he's disciplined, he's focused, he's in the pool every single day, he has this Olympic dream, and then nature intervenes.
Big time. 1989. Hurricane Hugo.
And this wasn't just some storm.
No, this was a monster. A Category 4. It absolutely devastated the Caribbean. It just leveled St. Croix. And for Tim, the specific casualty was the island's only Olympic-sized swimming pool.
It's gone.
Destroyed. Completely gone. The infrastructure for his dream literally collapses overnight.
So what do?
Well, the team, they try to keep training. They decide they're going to swim in the ocean, which seems logical, right? You live on an island.
Makes sense.
But this is where the story gets really human, because you look at Tim Duncan later in his career, this giant of a man, stoic, completely unshakable.
A rock.
The total rock. But the reason he stopped swimming? Sharks.
He was afraid of sharks.
He had a mortal fear of sharks. He was terrified of what was swimming around in that deep water.
Yeah.
And that fear, it ruined his enthusiasm for the sport. He couldn't focus on his stroke. He couldn't focus on his time when all he could think about was what was beneath him.
So just like that, the dream is over.
The Olympic swimming dream is over. But right around this same time, tragedy strikes his life in a much, much more profound way.
Yeah.
Just before his 14th birthday, his mother, Ione, she passes away from breast cancer.
And this is a moment we really have to pause on because it shapes everything that comes later.
Everything.
Ione was a professional midwife, a very strong, central figure in his life. And on her deathbed, she gets a promise from Tim and his sisters.
She made them promise that they would graduate from college, not just attend, but graduate, get the degree.
And you have to understand, in the world of elite basketball, especially back then, that's almost unheard of for a top prospect.
It's seen as a mistake. You're leaving millions of dollars on the table. But for Duncan, That promise to his mother was absolutely binding. It was non-negotiable. It wasn't even a choice.
So let's just recap the timeline here. He's 14 years old. His mother has just passed away. His swimming dream is dead because of a hurricane and a fear of sharks. He's grieving.
He's totally adrift. And his brother-in-law, Ricky, basically just hands him a basketball and says, "Here, try this. It might help with the pain and frustration."
And how was he at first? Was he a natural?
He was terrible.
Really?
Oh, absolutely. The athletic director at his school described him as awfully awkward. He was huge, obviously, but he didn't have the coordination yet. He didn't have that, that basketball instinct.
So he's just a tall, gangly kid.
But, and this is where the swimmer in him comes right back, he knew how to work, he knew discipline, so he applied that same repetitive, solitary focus from the pool to the basketball court.
So he's not trying to do flashy stuff.
No. He treated shooting a bank shot the same way he treated doing a flip turn. It was all about repetition, mechanics, efficiency. He totally bypassed the cool phase that most kids go through and went straight to the fundamentals.
And he's doing all this in relative obscurity, right? He's on an island. He's not on the AAU circuit getting ranked.
Exactly. He was just working. But he learned fast. I mean, really fast. By the time he was 16, Alonzo Mourning, who was already a legit NBA star, came to the island for a clinic.
An all-star center.
A monster. And they played a pickup game.
And the legend has it.
The legend is that the 16-year-old Duncan played Alonzo Mourning to a draw.
Wow.
Yeah. Here's this teenage kid who just started playing, and he's blocking the shots of one of the most physically imposing centers in the entire league. That's when the word started to get out.
That's how Wake Forest finds him.
That's the story. Dave Odom, the coach at Wake Forest, he hears about this and he flies down to see him.
And this first meeting between Odom and Duncan, it gives us the first real glimpse of the Tim Duncan personality that would confuse people for the next 20 years.
It's a classic story. Odom goes to meet him. He's sitting with Tim, giving him the whole recruiting pitch, the program, the school, the future.
And Tim's just
staring at him blankly.
The famous blank stare.
That's it. Odom actually thought Duncan wasn't listening. He thought the kid was spacing out or was bored or maybe just wasn't very bright.
Okay.
So he finally stops and he asks, "Tim, are you hearing me?" And Tim, just completely calm, repeats the last 3 sentences Odom had said, word for word.
Whoa.
He was listening. He was listening intently. He just wasn't performing the reaction. He wasn't nodding or smiling or giving all the social cues that we expect from people.
He was processing data.
He was processing data. And that is such a crucial distinction. We so often confuse expressive with engaged. Duncan was hyper-engaged. He just wasn't broadcasting it.
So that leads him to Wake Forest. He commits. He goes to college.
And he stays for 4 years. He honors that promise to his mother, even when he was projected as the #1 pick after his sophomore and junior years.
He could have left early. Easily.
Oh, easily. But he stayed. And while he's there, he becomes an absolute monster on the court. 2-time ACC Player of the Year, the consensus National Player of the Year in 1997. He left as the all-time leading rebounder in NCAA history for the modern era.
Just total dominance.
But aside from the on-court stuff, something else really important was happening at Wake Forest. He was studying psychology.
And I don't mean he was just taking a few classes to stay eligible, right? Like, he was really into it.
This is probably my favorite detail about the entire Tim Duncan story. He didn't just get a degree in psychology. He co-authored a chapter in a social psychology book.
He what?
Yeah. The book was called Aversive Interpersonal Behaviors.
Aversive interpersonal behaviors. Okay, you have to unpack that for us. What does that even mean?
It's essentially the academic study of how people react to negative social interactions. Things like ego, narcissism, how people respond to frustration or taunting.
Okay.
So Duncan wasn't just studying this in a classroom. He was applying it directly to the game of basketball. He realized very early on that if you show excitement, you also show disappointment. If you let people see you get frustrated, you're giving your opponent a handle, a way to get to you.
So the boring face.
Yes.
The complete lack of emotion. It wasn't that he didn't care.
No, it was a tactical weapon.
It was a competitive advantage.
Precisely. Opposing fans used to taunt him by calling him Mr. Spock from Star Trek.
Right.
They thought they were insulting him, but they were actually identifying his superpower. Logic over emotion. Detachment as a form of dominance.
There's that great quote from Shaq about this later on in their careers.
Oh, it's perfect. Shaq wrote in his autobiography that he could break almost anyone. He said he could get in David Robinson's face. He could get a rise out of Alonzo Mourning. He could trash talk Patrick Ewing and get under their skin.
But not Duncan.
But not Duncan. Shaq said, when I went at Tim, he'd look at me like he was bored. And Shaq found that completely unbreakable. You can't fight someone who refuses to acknowledge that a fight is even happening.
It's like trying to punch water. Or a wall.
Exactly. It's a concept in psychology called gray rocking. It's when you make yourself as uninteresting and unresponsive as a plain gray rock, so the person trying to provoke you just loses interest or gets frustrated themselves and gives up.
Tim Duncan was gray rocking the entire NBA.
For 19 years.
So he comes out of college, armed with this psychological armor and a degree. He enters the 1997 NBA draft.
Goes #1 overall to the San Antonio Spurs. And this is another one of those moments of, I don't know, luck or destiny.
Because the Spurs weren't a terrible team.
Not at all. They weren't a dumpster fire. They were a really good team that had one bad year because their superstar, their MVP, David Robinson, got hurt.
So it was the perfect situation. He lands in a stable organization with a Hall of Fame center ready to mentor him.
And this is the birth of the Twin Towers.
So for the listener who might be used to the modern NBA, the small ball era where everyone is shooting threes, can you just explain why the Twin Towers lineup was such a nightmare for opponents?
Yeah, just imagine trying to drive to the basket. You somehow manage to get past the first 7-footer, who happens to be David Robinson, a former Defensive Player of the Year.
Right.
And then waiting for you at the rim is another 7-footer, Tim Duncan. It just completely suffocated the paint. Defensively, it was a fortress.
And on offense.
They played a beautiful high-low game. One big man stands near the free throw line, the other near the basket. And they just pass to each other over the heads of the smaller defenders. It requires chemistry and a total lack of ego. Duncan and Robinson had that instantly.
And we have to talk about Greg Popovich here.
Yeah?
Because that relationship is the engine for this entire dynasty.
It is arguably the greatest and most important coach-player relationship in the history of sports. And it started right away. Popovich saw that same thing Coach Odom saw in that first meeting.
The focus.
That singular demeanor. He never got too high after a win, never got too low after a loss. And Popovich realized he could coach Duncan harder than anyone else. He would just scream at him in film sessions. Yeah. Timmy, you're killing us on the boards.
And Duncan would just take it.
He'd just take it, he'd nod, he'd process the data and try to get better.
Which sets the tone for the entire team. I mean, if the franchise player, the superstar, is letting the coach yell at him for a mistake.
Then the 12th man on the bench can't say a single word. It creates this culture of complete accountability. No one is above the team.
And the results were immediate.
Instantaneous. Rookie of the year, he made the All-NBA first team in his very first season, which is almost unheard of.
And by his second season, the lockout-shortened 1999 season, they're winning it all.
That 99 championship run really set the standard for what was to come. They beat the Knicks in the finals.
And there was this moment in Game 5 that I think just perfectly encapsulates early career Duncan.
Yeah.
It's the closing seconds. Spurs are protecting a 1-point lead.
Right. The Knicks have the ball. Latrell Sprewell, who is this dynamic, explosive scorer, he has it. He drives baseline.
Okay.
David Robinson cuts him off. Sprewell is trapped, so he tries to pivot out. And who is standing there?
Tim Duncan.
Tim Duncan. They form this perfect trap, force a wild desperation shot. It misses. Ball game. Championship.
And Duncan is named Finals MVP in his second year.
Yeah. And Popovich said something to the Knicks coach, Jeff Van Gundy, after the series. He just said, I've got Tim and you don't. That's the difference.
Simple as that.
Simple as that. And that really defined the next decade and a half for the entire league. But as we move into the early 2000s, this is where Duncan really ascends to a level that I think people forget. We talk about him as a longevity guy, which he was. But his peak, his absolute peak, was terrifying.
You're talking about the 2002 and 2003 MVP seasons.
Back-to-back league MVPs. And let's focus specifically on 2003. This is the great carry job that doesn't get talked about enough in NBA history.
What do you mean by that?
Well, David Robinson is at the end of the line. He's retiring. He's 37. His back is shot. He can't play heavy minutes.
Okay.
And Tony Parker and Manu Ginóbili are on the team, but they're babies. They aren't the Hall of Famers we know them as yet. Parker was literally getting benched in the fourth quarter of playoff games for a guy named Speedy Claxton.
So it's all on Tim.
It is all Tim. And in the 2003 finals against the New Jersey Nets, Game 6, the closeout game, listen to the stat line.
Yeah.
Duncan puts up 21 points, 20 rebounds, 10 assists, and 8 blocks.
8 blocks.
8 blocks. He was 2 blocks away from a quadruple-double in a finals-clinching game.
That's that's one of the greatest games ever played.
It's one of the single greatest individual performances in the history of the sport. He completely controlled the game on both ends. When you block 8 shots, you aren't just stopping 8 potential baskets, you're creating a no-fly zone. The Nets were terrified to even go into the paint.
And they win the title.
They win! Sports Illustrated named him and Robinson Sportsman of the Year. He was, without question, the best player on the planet.
And yet, even while he's dominating like this, putting up these historic numbers, the boring narrative is just sticking to him like glue. Why? Was it just the personality, or was it the actual style of play?
It was both. It was the big fundamental nickname, and it was the bank shot.
Ugh! The bank shot. Let's get technical on this for a second. Why did he use it so much? It's not a cool shot. You don't see kids at the park yelling Duncan and banking one in.
No, you don't. It's a pure physics. When you shoot a regular shot straight at the rim, your margin for error is tiny. You have to be almost perfect on the arc and the distance.
Right.
When you use the backboard, the board absorbs some of the energy of the ball. It slows it down. It gives you a much wider, softer target. And Duncan operated from the block, that painted rectangle on the floor. From that 45-degree angle, the bank shot is geometrically the highest percentage shot you can take.
So he chose geometry over artistry.
Always. Every single time.
Yeah.
He didn't care if it looked cool. He cared if it went in. But you have to remember the era. This is the early 2000s, the And One mixtape era. Street ball was huge.
Baggy shorts, crossovers.
Exactly. The culture valued individual expression, flair, highlights. And here's Tim Duncan playing this fundamental, textbook, efficient basketball. It was like bringing a calculator to a rap battle.
That is the perfect analogy.
You might be right. You might be more efficient, but nobody wants to watch it.
And yet, the calculator kept winning.
Kept winning. They win in 99, 03, then again in 05 against that tough Detroit Pistons team, which was a defensive grind fest.
He won Finals MVP in that one, too.
His third. And then again in 07, they sweep a young LeBron James and the Cavaliers. That's 4 rings. He's on top of the world. But then we hit a bit of a rough patch.
The DNP oldie era. My favorite.
It's a classic Popovich story.
It really is. Around 2008, 2009, Duncan starts dealing with chronic knee tendinosis. The cartilage is just wearing down. He's slowing down. All the critics are saying the dynasty is finally dead.
The window is closed.
The window is slammed shut. And in 2012, Popovich literally lists him on the official scorecard for a game as DNP oldie-ol. Did not play old.
Just trolling the whole league.
It was a joke, but it was also the reality. They were carefully managing his minutes to try and extend his career. But that management, that attempt to get one more run out of the group, it led to some serious heartbreak before they got that final redemption. We have to talk about 2013.
The Miami Heat final.
The big three. LeBron, Dwayne Wade, Chris Bosh. The Spurs are up 3-2 in the series. They are seconds away from winning the title in Game 6.
And this is the moment where the robot finally cracked. Just for a second. Everyone remembers the Ray Allen shot that tied the game at the buzzer.
Of course. One of the biggest shots in history.
But what haunts Duncan, what he talks about, is what happened late in Game 7. The Spurs are down by 2. Duncan has a mismatch in the post against Shane Battier. Battier is smaller.
This is bread and butter.
It's a shot he has made 10,000 times in his life. He gets into the lane, he spins, he puts up a little right-handed hook shot.
And he missed it.
He missed it short, and then he tried to tip it back in, and he missed that too. And then as he ran back down the court, he slapped the floor with both hands.
That image. I can see it right now. For a guy who never, ever showed emotion, that floor slap was like a primal scream.
It was pure devastation. He knew. He knew that was the chance. That was the championship. They lose the series. And honestly, for 99% of players in NBA history, that is the end of the story. You're 37 years old. You just lost to finals in the most heartbreaking way imaginable. You retire.
But this is the Spurs. And this is Tim Duncan.
They don't just come back in 2014. They come back with an absolute vengeance. They win 62 games in the regular season.
But they were playing differently, right?
Completely differently. Popovich and Duncan realized they couldn't win playing that old Duncan ball anymore, just dumping it into the post every time. So they reinvented themselves. They created what became known as the beautiful game.
The motion offense.
Exactly. Constant passing, cutting, ball movement. It was like watching European soccer on a basketball court. And Duncan, He suppressed his ego completely. He became a screener, a rebounder, the defensive anchor. He let Tony Parker and a young Kawhi Leonard take the scoring load.
And they meet the Heat again in the finals. A rematch.
And they dismantled them. It wasn't even a contest. They won the series with a record margin of victory. It was a basketball clinic. It was perfect team basketball.
And Duncan wins his 5th ring.
5 rings. 1999, 2003, 2005, 2007, 2014. That span is just incredible.
He's one of the only players to ever win championships in 3 different decades.
And he did it all with the same team. That's the other part of this legacy that's just so rare now. He spent his entire 19-year career with the San Antonio Spurs. He became the first player in NBA history to reach 1,000 wins with one team.
1,000 wins.
Just think about that number. Most players don't play in 1,000 games, let alone win that many.
It speaks to the culture they build, but he was the culture.
He was. Popovich has said it a million times. When your best player, your superstar, allows himself to be coached when he isn't demanding special treatment, everyone else just falls in line.
We've talked so much about his on-court demeanor, but I want to touch on his off-court personality for a minute because it contradicts the boring thing, too.
Yeah.
He's not a robot. He's actually, well, he's kind of a nerd, right?
A huge nerd, and I say that with the utmost affection and respect. He loves Renaissance fairs.
Oh yeah.
Oh, yeah. There are pictures of him wearing, like, wizard cloaks. He plays Dungeons and Dragons. He has a sword collection.
A sword collection.
Yes, a legitimate sword collection. He even has a samurai sword in his office. And he loves video games, StarCraft specifically. He's just a guy with these very eclectic, very genuine interests. He just didn't perform them for the cameras.
He didn't care about the brand of Tim Duncan.
He didn't care at all. He just cared about his life and his game.
And he opened that car customization shop, right?
Yeah, Blackjack Speed Shop. He loves mechanics. He loves taking things apart and figuring out how to make them work better, which, when you think about it, is exactly what he did with the game of basketball. He took it apart and optimized it for winning.
And we should mention his philanthropy, too. The Tim Duncan Foundation.
Massive impact, especially for his home, the Virgin Islands. After all the hurricanes and during COVID, he was paying for student travel, sending supplies, funding generators. He never forgot where he came from.
But, of course, he never held a press conference about it.
Never. He just wrote the check and did the work.
So 2016 rolls around. It's the end of the line. And in true, perfect Tim Duncan fashion, how does he announce his retirement?
No farewell tour, no season-long celebration, no gifting ceremonies at every arena like we saw with Kobe or Derek Jeter.
Nothing like that.
He just opted into his player contract for the next season. And then in July, on a random Monday morning, the Spurs just released a short press statement saying he was retiring. That was it.
He just walked away.
He just walked away. It's perfect. It's the only way he could have possibly done it.
The Spurs retired his number 21 jersey, obviously. He even came back and coached as an assistant under Pop for a year, which was surreal to see.
Yeah, he even stepped in as head coach for one game when Pop missed it and he got the win. But mostly, he's just retired. He's living his life.
So let's bring it all back to that central question, that boring label. When you look at the totality of his story, the swimming background, the psychology degree, the sharks, the death of his mother, that promise, the 5 rings, the longevity, the D&D, what does it all mean?
It means that boring was always the wrong word. The word was disciplined or stoic or maybe controlled. Tim Duncan understood something that very few athletes ever truly grasp.
Which is what?
He understood that emotion is a variable. And to be consistently great, not just great for a highlight, but great for 19 years, you have to eliminate the variables. He was a constant. In a league defined by chaos and drama, he was the constant.
He broke his opponents by refusing to let them break him.
Exactly. He denied them the satisfaction of a reaction. And in doing so, he beat them. Over and over and over again.
It really makes you wonder, and this is something for you listening to chew on.
Yeah.
We live in an era now that is absolutely obsessed with the personal brand, with viral moments, with being a character as much as being a player. In this environment, would a player like Tim Duncan, a player who prioritized fundamental perfection and quiet consistency over stardom, would he be appreciated today? Or would he still be misunderstood? Would we still call the greatest power forward of all time boring?
That is the question, because I think we might be missing out on real greatness because we're too busy looking for entertainment.
That's it for this deep dive into the career and the mind of Tim Duncan. Thanks for listening, and we'll catch you on the next one.
Take care.